meeting of the Hayes City Commission to order. Second item on the agenda, consider approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held on August 22nd, 2019. Are there any changes or corrections?
No changes.
They're approved as presented. I want to welcome all of you to City Hall tonight, those here in chambers and at home. This is your meeting, and we appreciate your interest in city government. If anyone would like to come forward and address the City Commission about a non-agenda item, you may do so now. Everyone here seems to be on the agenda, so we're going to wait. The next item on the agenda is employee promotions and new hires.
Good evening, Commissioners. Brian Dawson, Deputy Chief of Police, Hayes Police Department. I'm excited to introduce our latest hires at the Hayes Police Department and Municipal Court for the city. First, I'd like to introduce Sarah Wheeler. Sierra has taken the Municipal Court Records Clerk position. And Sarah's from the state of Washington. She received a Bachelor's of Arts from Washington State University. Sarah and her family have been living in Hayes for a couple years, and she started her position as the Municipal Court Records Clerk on July 29th of this year. And Sarah's been very helpful with the front staff there at the Hayes Police Department and Municipal Court. So I'd like to welcome and introduce Sarah Wheeler to you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Next is Officer Joseph Lance. Officer Lance hails from Wichita, Kansas, and started at the Hayes Police Department also on July 29th. Officer Lance is a member of the United States Army Reserve, and he serves as a paralegal specialist in the reserves. Officer Lance will start his attendance at the Police Academy on December 9th. So, welcome.
Welcome.
And last but not least, the tall guy there on the end is Officer Derek Nordell. He may look familiar to some of you. Officer Nordell was employed by the Hayes Police Department previously and had moved to Concordia. He has since moved back to Hayes, and we were happy to rehire him and bring him back into the department and part of our family. So please welcome back Officer Nordell.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
And we also appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come do this. Thank you. It means a lot to us. There's nothing on the consent agenda, and there's no unfinished business. We move on to new business. First item on the new business agenda, update on First Call for Help. Linda Mills, Executive Director, is going to provide an update on the services provided by First Call for Help. Yes, please. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Excellent.
For those of you that don't know, the person handing out the brochures is one of our First Call board members, Dennis Wilson. And he has been a great help. Do I need the mic closer?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Kim, if you would assist with technology.
Very good. How about now? Is that better?
Well, I presume at home. We
Yeah,
can hear you well.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm yelling down the back hall. Well, as I was introduced, I'm Linda Mills, Executive Director with First Call for Help. I have been there since August of 2013, so just passing my 6th year. And there's been a lot of changes since I've been there. The first 3 years, we continued to lease offices in the Hadley Center. And you know, for 20 years, I don't know how long they were at the Hadley Center, but for 20 years they've been providing services in the Hayes and Ellis County community for both residents and non-residents. And we couldn't do that without the help of the city and their support, but also personnel of the city, specifically the police department. They help us with our transient assistance, and you know, since we don't have a lot of services here for transients, this is a way that we can help them get to services. But I think that as I have grown and learned in the organization, we do mostly preventing homelessness or trying to prevent homelessness. So our rent assistance with residents of Ellis County is one of the services. We cannot pay their whole rent. We cannot pay a deposit or first month's rent because it's for residents, not necessarily for someone new to town. But also would be very expensive to do that and get somebody settled into their own place. But the services do prevent homelessness, whether it's local or non-local. You know, I hope or think that most people are familiar with First Call for Help. I don't know if there's any new people, but we also have a food pantry. We do Meals on Wheels service, delivering meals to elderly and disabled. We deliver about 7,000 meals with the help of a lot of volunteers, and that's during a year time. You know, there's been some articles in the paper, some interviews with myself and other people involved with the project that I'm going to talk about today. But one of the big questions that we always get is whether or not there are homeless people in Hayes. And there are homeless people in Hayes. They want to stay here. They're really not a transient, but they have fell on hard times, been evicted, or they had been staying with family and friends, and that came to a halt. They had to leave that place. But what we are really focusing on and starting with is those folks that are working, and maybe they have low wages or their hours have been cut or something like that, and they haven't been able to make their rent and they've been evicted, but they're still working. And there are quite a number of those individuals. The other possibility is if someone such as that is in danger of being evicted and we're not able to help with the amount that they need to satisfy their landlord because they've gotten so far behind, and sometimes the landlord or the property manager has no choice but to evict them. And these are single people, married people, single parents with children. 60% of our rent and utility services are single moms with children. And a lot of them, when we do ask for proof of income and things like that, and what they are making in the job that they have is not enough for them to, you know, as a livable wage, to be able to pay their rent, pay their utilities, get food on the table, clothe their children, provide transportation for their children to get to school and back. So those are really the two categories of people that we are wanting to help with our project. The project is a transitional housing program. Transitional housing is a type of program where the participants come and live in the facility while they are trying to get back on their feet. But while they are doing that, we are providing a lot of supportive services. We will help them work on their budget while they're earning an income. It will be a requirement for them to save part of their income regardless of what it is, because that's the purpose, is to let them stay there and then them be able to move out in 6 months and have enough money saved for that rent and deposit. We will partner with a lot of the other agencies in Hayes. We don't believe in reinventing the wheel, so Kansas Works has a great job resource where they can help people with everything from resumes and interviews to a job resource for jobs that are available. So we will send them there to get that kind of assistance. The Extension Office has cooking and nutrition classes. We will invite them to the transitional housing, and we'll also open it to the community. We have a lot of people that sometimes ask about that, but most of the time we don't have enough of a group to bring the Extension Office in. So we'll be referring a lot of the clients that come in to see us, as well as the participants, to be in those types of educational. And of course, the main thing is budgeting, teaching them how to make those decisions, how to prioritize, how to put that housing issue number one. That's the number one thing you have to do to take care of yourself and take care of your children. And so that's where we'll focus a lot of our supportive services. Let's see. I wanted to talk a little bit about head count and homeless. It's very difficult to really count the homeless in a rural area. HUD does a project in January to try and count the homeless in every county in the nation. But they have that in January, about the 3rd or 4th week of January, and that is typically a time when anybody who is struggling with housing has probably either moved south or is staying with friends and family or someone else. There's a couple of familiar people in Hayes that I know we all see. As I interviewed him one day a couple of years ago, I asked him what he does when it's too cold, because he talked about sleeping in the ditches or in doorways, and he said he does have some people that he can rely on to spend the night at their house for a few nights when it's really cold out. He doesn't want to abuse that privilege, so when it's nice enough, he sleeps outside. Another example of some of the folks in Hayes that struggle with this homelessness, again, I said low wages. It's something that they face probably every 3 or 4 months, struggling to pay that rent because they've had to pay other things that were needed. An example is a client that was in my office talking to me about being able to find a place to live and what we could do to help her. And while she was in there, her cell phone rang, and it was the school counselor. One of her daughters, she had 3 children, but I believe this daughter was in 3rd grade, was in the school's counseling office talking to the counselor about how they didn't have a place to stay, and she had anxiety, because she didn't know where they were going to be. She just knew that things kind of blew up at her house and they didn't have a place to go. So those are some examples of folks that we may be able to help through transitional housing. The First Step Housing building project is going on now. We are working to raise initially $250,000 to do renovation in our building and also just get this off the ground, first year operating expenses. What we would like to do is continue to raise funds for growth in the future, because we don't believe we will have 4 units in this project. We don't believe that 4 units is enough. We expect to have 4 participants pretty much as soon as we start announcing that we have the rooms done and the kitchen done and that type of thing. When one place becomes available, we expect to have somebody waiting in line to move in there. The Hayes Public Housing Authority, you can go down and fill out an application for the HUD voucher program, but you're going to wait 18 months to 2 years. And, you're going to have to be able, when they do call your name up, you're going to have to be able to find a place that will pass their inspection. And sometimes, for what they can afford, they wouldn't pass inspection either. They don't have a second plan of escape if there were a fire. Sometimes some of the places have no windows, they just have the door. But anyway, those are some of the things that Hayes residents who are struggling with housing are challenged with. We have started construction just this week in the area that's within the office area. Our building is a very long building with the front of it facing 13th Street. Then it goes all the way back to the alley. There's a wall in about half of as you get halfway down the building. That's the front half. That's where we already remodeled a couple years ago for our offices. So the part that we're working on now will be a meeting or a conference area where we can have those small workshops with participants, where we can have our board meetings. where we can have all of our supplies, the groceries, and the diaper stash, and the hygiene that we help people with as they need it. There's also space for an office, because we expect in the future we will have to hire more staff. Right now we have 3 full-time employees. The part that will be remodeled later when we've raised sufficient funds will be the 4 units, and it will have a shared kitchen and laundry area. The rooms are private. They have their own bathroom. Because the area in the building is completely separate from the front part of the building, we don't plan to have 24-hour staff. We plan to expect that these folks can start being responsible for themselves. They may be working at night and have to come into the building later, so they'll have their own entrance into the building as well. Trying to think of what I forgot here. Questions? Oh, backpacks for kids. Yes, how can I forget that? We just moved a ton of backpacks over to a church to store. We distributed 678 backpacks this year. We had a very generous gift from Midland Marketing that we also provided, I believe it was 50 backpacks to Midland Marketing, and they took and distributed those to some of the other county schools that they serve. So we were happy to do that. Trying to think if I forgot anything, but please ask
If I may,
questions.
this is an impressive addition and much needed, and I appreciate the work you're putting into it. You estimate it's going to cost approximately $250,000. How is fundraising going? How much more do you need?
We have raised $42,000 to
All right.
this point. One large gift has come from ECMA for specifically the conference room and distribution area.
Okay.
And we also received another large gift of $10,000 from an individual, and then we've received, several. The rest are individual, but for $1,000 or $200, $100. We had someone who entered some things in the fair, and she came up to me at the backpack distribution, and she said, "This isn't very much, but I want it to go to that housing." It was $27 she wanted at the fair. So
I would recommend, and you maybe already done this, Heartland Community Foundation
yes,
and obviously the Dane G. Hansen
Yes.
Foundation.
yes, we are. I have not submitted a grant yet to the Hansen Foundation specifically because we're waiting to get the bids from the contractors,
makes
because
sense.
I know that the Hansen Foundation probably will not consider a large grant unless we're able to provide that.
Right.
Our building plans were drawn up by Terry Alt, who unfortunately passed away the other day, and he did that pro bono, no cost to us. So we appreciate so much what he has done. So we will be trying to take advantage of not only the Hansen Foundation, but possibly the Schmidt Foundation and other foundations that can serve this area. So,
Commissioners, any questions for Linda?
Just appreciate the work you do.
Yes.
thank you.
Linda, I have a couple questions.
Yes.
How long do you think it's going to take to do this?
It won't
time
take
frame?
very long to build it, but we just can't take a guess at how long it's going to take to raise the funds. Originally, we really wanted to be open January 1st of 2020. We waited longer than anticipated for the architectural plans, and then needed to start fundraising right away to get started on part of it. So even at this point, we're still hoping for a spring opening to be up and running by the spring. The construction, once it starts, is not probably going to take very long.
There is Heartland Community Foundation does open a grant cycle on Sunday at midnight.
Sunday, yes.
And it's open until November 15th. You have extended periods. in which to get it done. So I think there's pieces in there, kitchen appliances
Yes.
and so forth, that would be good.
We were actually blessed from the Heartland Foundation with a washer and dryer a year or so ago, and we really thought our plans were going to move a lot faster. So
I remember when you took me through the area back
yes,
there, and I
yeah.
was so impressed. Good stuff sometimes takes time.
Yes,
And I
yeah, it
appreciate so
does.
much. You've just done a wonderful job, and when it's all done, I do fear, though, the minute it opens, it's full.
That's gonna be
Yeah.
cool.
And
And it
so
will be.
looking, at bigger and housing and so
Yes.
forth in the future.
And what we have said several times is we're starting small, but we are thinking big.
Good for you.
4 rooms is not enough. And we actually, and I don't know if this is for sure yet, but Golden Ox has provided the Greyhound bus station for many, many years, and we're able to help transients get down the road. I have heard from them and several other people that they're doing a remodel right now, and they are really considering not providing the Greyhound service, which means that until someone takes over that service, we might have more issues to try and help them get to services.
Well, you do great work, and I appreciate it very much.
We have a great board. They've put a lot of time into this, insisting that we have policies developed and even procedures as much as we can anticipate what we need there. So, yeah, they've all worked very hard.
Any specific information you might have that you'd like to share with us, please give it to city manager. Architectural renderings, whatever, or like a grant application.
Well, the
Copies of,
yeah, I don't have them with me.
Oh, I know that. No, at a future
but
date. Not
yeah, at a future date. The city has supported us over, I think, many, many years, at least for sure the last 6 years, through the Care Council
Right.
process. And so probably we'll be visiting Toby and Kim at some point to talk a little bit about future support, whether this might be something that they could consider in their budget for some
We consider
operational
that. That's why I'm
costs.
pressuring you to give the
Right.
information. So we can take it up sooner rather than later.
Yes, okay.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Dennis, go to the microphone and give your name for the record, and be brief, please. Thank you.
I'm Dennis Wilson. I'm on the board of First Call for Help, and I wanted to just extend my thanks to the members of the city of Hayes, Toby being one, who helped me when I was trying to figure out how we were going to even start this mess. So I just want to say thank you, because the city has been excellent in providing us with information and assistance. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for
Dennis.
mentioning that.
Appreciate The next item on the agenda is the solid waste fee increase. We're going to look at a resolution and a presentation.
City Commission was presented with a staff recommendation for solid waste fees a couple work sessions back. And at the time, Ellis County was considering modifying their tipping fees. Tipping fees are a large part of what our expenses go towards in solid waste. And we were entertaining an option from a private hauler for hauling to the transfer station, or from the transfer station. Anyway, that has all been worked out. So Jesse is going to go through his initial presentation that he gave at the work session, and then incorporate the new information, and we have a modified rate increase that we would like to put in front of the commission.
Good evening, Jesse Rohr, Director of Public Works. So as Toby mentioned, back in July of this year, we initially discussed a possible solid waste rate increase. And since that time, since some changes have occurred that I want to talk about tonight, and I'll start out with a little brief history of the solid waste program, and then I'll go over what the fees actually cover that we collect in solid waste. So, as I talked about back in July, we started our recycling program back in 1995. Kind of started as a very, very small program. We grew from there, and in 2007 we started the automated collection. Prior to that, in 2006, we established the rate of $15.20 to facilitate the polycart, the automated collection system. As with anything, expenses have increased over the last 10 plus years, and that comes from a variety of reasons, from fuel, tipping fees, hauling, sorting fees, equipment. And aside from expenses, our revenues on the recycling side have continued to decline. And the decline in revenue, recycling material that you see on the screen here, that decline alone equates to about 68 cents per customer per month, or a little over $8 a year. So that is significant as we talk about this further. So where does the money go that's collected per customer per month? So this kind of gives you a perspective of the amount of fees that are collected and what they go towards. Kind of three components to that: the refuse and alley cleanup, the recycle program, and then we can't forget our compost operation that we've also had established for several years. The current fee of $15.20, based on our average collections and the number of customers, generates just under 1.3 million in annual revenue. Total expenses we have projected for 2020 are just over 1.5 million, and you can see the difference here in the screen. And we'll talk about some different rate scenarios here in a moment. Tonight, the recommendation coming forward is for a rate of $17.30, and we feel as staff this is the minimum rate that we'd like to ask for at this time. You can see here what it would generate in revenue, and you can see that difference of $230,000 I talked about here, and the difference is shrunk to just over $50,000. And I'll have a spreadsheet, like I say, I'll show you in a moment. You can look at the suggested rate increase over the course of several years. When we met back in July, we were considering a rate increase of $17.48. However, again, as the city manager mentioned, since that time, the county commission has lowered the tipping fee for bulk rate customers. And as of September 1st, we are now paying $72 a ton rather than $75 a ton. That alone has allowed us to decrease the proposed rate by 18 cents per month per customer. That $3 change. For comparison's sake, I do want to show various peer cities and what their rates are. You can obviously see where Hayes falls on the scale of different cities here. Some of these cities provide recycling service, some do not. Some have curbside recycling, such as Hayes, El Dorado, Lawrence, and Salina. Dodge City does have recycling, but they have a drop-off site for their recycling program. You know, the ranges from one city to another, as you can see, vary significantly. So I showed you this chart a little earlier, and so now I'm trying to break down the services and their particular costs. So the solid red line represents the current price of $15.20 per customer per month. To provide all services, we're looking for that minimum fee of $17.30. Then as you go to the left, the different bars there on the table, you can see if we were to reduce services, we can drop costs. I think as staff, we are not recommending cutting any services that we currently provide. The second bar from the right is refuse and recycle, so there's no compost operation in that. And then as you go farther to the left, you can see we get rid of recycling, we get rid of composting, and again, our recommendation is to stay to the far right side of the table at that minimum $17.30. So I'm going to pull up a quick spreadsheet here.
Well, Jesse's doing this. Two things I want to mention. One, the spreadsheet has our recommendation, but if the city commission would like to look at different variations of increases over the years, we can do that on the fly. Secondly, as I mentioned before, we're considering a private option, and we had obtained a quote from that person, and that quote we talked about in July was $65 a ton. Well, after the meeting in July and after the county commission meeting, when Jesse went back to the private hauler to firm up the quote, that price had raised to $69 a ton. So therefore, the gap we had talked about in July doesn't exist now.
Jim, I would ask if we could look at changing this somewhat, and with the 2020 rate being 10% higher, and then the 2021 rate becoming 7 or 9, actually. 9. So 10 and 9, please. My rationale is this. I had a call 2 weeks ago, and a person wanted to know why her water bill was so high. She had moved here from another smaller town not on our schedule, and her water bill was the same amount as mine. So I pointed out that her water bill of $55, $57 was actually only $14 for water, and there was all these other costs that she wasn't aware of. She hadn't really read the bill. She just looked at the bottom line, as we all do. And I think maybe Linda would support this, that since we've continued, we had to raise our water rates, and particularly our sewer rates. People are having trouble paying their bills, and because their income is not going up as fast as our rates are. And I know for most of us here, it's not a problem. But for someone who is working a minimum wage job or a little bit more than that, they cannot afford this and food and rent. So if there's any way we could slow this rate increase down and not hurt and make the second year, you said 9? That's what I said.
So what we're trying to achieve, the unreserved fund balance, the first orange line
I
from the top as you
understand.
come down.
Yep.
We're trying to keep that as close to zero as possible without building up too much cash or going too far into the hole.
And what year are you going to replace your equipment?
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Is it 21 or 22?
It's 26.
So there's various equipment that gets replaced every year.
Right.
And we're just now.
27.
We've already purchased this year the 3 automated trucks. We have new recycling trucks. We'll have things coming up. I think in 2021 we have a skid steer replacement. I think we have a baler coming up 2022 or so. It's actually in really good shape right now. We've actually been pushing that back a little bit because it's in really good condition. And so we're in pretty good shape equipment-wise.
2027 is when the automated trucks, commission just authorized the purchase will be replaced.
Right, we just
That's the
want those.
$850,000 expenditure. And you can see the reserves go down to 131,000 at that time. It builds so we can pay cash, and then it goes down to 131,000 at that time.
I think I'm in agreement with the mayor. I'd like to see a little more, a straighter line of increase. rather
Back
than-
end, I think we're going to have to see at least 5 in those subsequent years.
Yep.
So that year, 5, pretty please.
5.
There you
I
go.
don't think you need to go
No, you
5.
stop right there, that's it.
Actually,
And then change to-
that's something that we could live with.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
great.
It's comfortable.
Our intent is once we get caught up, is, we generally project a 2% increase in expenditures each year. And along with that, we would expect a 2% increase in rate increases. Once we get to that point, we would
Right.
hope to have that 2%, but that would be reevaluated, and if it's.
Yeah, we have to see where we are.
Right,
Because
exactly.
the recycling situation may get better, may get worse. That is a problem we're going to have to address at some point. I have a plan, and we're not interested in that right now. And I understand, it's hard to change something we've been doing for so many years, and it's award-winning. So I'm comfortable with this. This is how I want to move forward, but I would leave that up to the rest of the commission.
With no increases over the last 10 years, this is palatable. Nobody likes to do it. Nobody's gonna love that 10%. But in having not done it for the last 10 years, I can certainly live with this, and I'd be okay with this going forward.
Well, I think 12 years ago, the tipping fees were $58.
Right.
And I think we've stretched that out pretty good for 12 years and not have to have a rate increase. And maybe we were slow in bringing this about, and we should have done smaller increases over this past 12 years so that we didn't have to do the 10%. But everything is costing more. This does take into account for the tipping fees that we foresee from the county, correct?
Correct, it sure does. as a change for the next 3 years.
No, and going on down, 6 years from now, things are going to increase, and we may have to readdress this to make sure that we are on stable financial ground
Exactly.
on this. So, but for now, I would be comfortable with that, knowing that, in the future, we may have to look at it depending on, where costs go.
And I think the county coming back with their counter proposal on the tipping fee has allowed us to have a little better solution than we may have had the first time, and I want the county to know that's appreciated.
Very much so.
Makes a big difference.
I would like to add one thing. The city attorney, we have a modified resolution at your seats. So after the rate was set in 2006, it was a year or so later, we realized that there were people that needed more than one polycard or wanted more than one polycard. And so the city commission set a separate rate via resolution. Basically, it's half of the price of a monthly rate for additional polycards. So the resolution you have incorporated both of those resolutions together. So you would not only set the rate, but it would provide that additional polycards are half the monthly rate.
1672. And 1822, is that right? Yep.
Yes, 1822 and then 1914, 1952, 1991.
And as the draft resolution has in front of you, rather than putting the percentage of increase per year, we like to have the dollar amounts. That way it's easier on the finance side of things. So there's no guesswork. It could be a penny or two or rounding issues or things. So the actual resolution will have the dollar amount of the increase that you.
So we're not approving this tonight.
Yes.
I thought we
Yeah,
were.
Yes.
but when you do it, obviously the draft you have has
Right, I have the right
numbers from
numbers.
the last time.
Right.
So, be specific in
will.
your motion so that we
will.
can fill in the blanks. And that'll be sufficient if you then vote on it and pass it.
Good.
It's effective and we don't have to come back to you with another copy of it.
So I move we approve resolution 2019-009 with amended rates as listed. Number one, $16.72 commencing with the first billing cycle in October 2019, $18.22 commencing January 2021, $19.14 commencing January 2022, $19.52 commencing January 2023, $19.91 commencing January 2024, unless modified by resolution otherwise during said period.
Second.
Any other discussion? Appreciate staff's work on this, and I know you're going to continue working to see how we can develop new efficiencies, and I like that. Appreciate the county. Yes. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Anything you'd like to add to tonight's? Commissioner Phelps, any inquiries or comments?
I do not have anything.
Commissioner Melick?
I do not have anything this evening.
Nothing for me, Mayor, thank you.
I'd like to call an executive session for a period not to exceed 50 minutes to discuss matters of attorney-client privilege and potential property acquisition with the city commission, city manager, city attorney, city finance director, representative from Grow Hayes, bond counsel, and city engineer project manager. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 4-0. No action will be taken during executive session.